Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So, professional hatchet man Jack Smith has filed a superseding indictment. Well, secured a superseding indictment on President Trump in the documents case after the previous case was dismissed. The new 36-page charging document, based on a more refined set of criminal acts after the Supreme Court ruled Trump was immune for prosecution for some of the conduct included in the original indictment that was returned last year. The 4 counts against Trump he previously faced, including conspiracy to defraud the U.S., are maintained, but the evidence is limited, including even the removal of one of the unnamed individuals from a list of unindicted co-conspirators. That unnamed individual believed to have been Jeffrey Clark, who was a lawyer in the Justice Department. Smith and his team has said a federal grand jury in Washington, D.C. returned the superseding indictment yesterday. They are not opposing waiving Trump's appearance at an arraignment on the new charging document. So, I mean, we'll see if this goes any further than the previous iteration of it, but it certainly doesn't seem possible that it would go anywhere before November 5th. For more on this and other matters, please be joined again by Professor William Jacobson, clinical professor of law and director of the Securities Law Clinic at Cornell Law School. He's also the founder of legalinsurrection.com, which is a must-read blog, the president of Legal Insurrection Foundation, as well as the Equal Protection Project. Professor Jacobson, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
So your handle on this superseding indictment that Smith secured yesterday?
Well, other than the timing, I don't think it's anything particularly dramatic. He is attempting, whether he'll be successful, to evade the Supreme Court ruling on immunity by taking a few things out, same charges. But why is he doing it now? Why is he doing it when people are starting early voting next week?
Mm-hmm.
That's really the question. Why is this guy so obsessed? He could have just gone a different way and agreed in court to drop certain of the evidence and certain of the portions of the prior indictment, but he made a decision. He made a decision to re-indict now, right on the cusp of voting. So I think that just goes to show why so many people are questioning this entire process.
President Trump took to Truth Social with an extended post, including several phrases in all caps. This is merely an attempt to interfere with the election. No presidential candidate or candidate for any office has ever had to put up with all of this lawfare and weaponization directly out of the office of a political opponent. They've weaponized local DAs and AGs and everybody else that will listen to interfere with the upcoming 2024 presidential election. So he certainly has a viewpoint on the timing that you're describing. And frankly, some of his newfound supporters, or at least formally established newfound supporters, like RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, are really singing the same song from their perspectives.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what RFK Jr. was talking about when he announced that he was going to be backing Trump, the lawfare that he's been subjected to. I mean, we have these bizarre situations in certain states where the Democrats fought to get RFK Jr. off the ballot, and now that he wants to be off the ballot, they're fighting to keep him on the ballot.
Right.
Right.
Doesn't that seem like election interference?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's legally a crime, I don't know, but it certainly is election interference in any way that you or I or any, hopefully normal person would view this. This is Jack Smith knew exactly what he was doing. The headlines this week are about a new indictment. It's going to be a Democrat talking point. It's probably going to come up in the fake staged interview that Kamala and her sidekick Walls are going to have on CNN. This is just gives them a talking point. Bring it up again. oh, the Supreme Court means nothing. They've just re-indicted him. I mean, we all know what's going on here. The American public, at least half of us are not stupid when it comes to these political things. We understand exactly what's going on.
And there's no chance that this goes anywhere before November 5th.
I don't think so. I mean, I can't imagine, it will start a court process in the sense of, doesn't start a new court case, but it will, Trump will be able to now challenge this new indictment.
Right.
And so it will start a process that in no conceivable world could finish or get anything substantive done by Election Day, but it will be in the news. It will be in the news, and there will be things going on in court which will be in the news, and that's what the Democrats want, and I think that's what Jack Smith wants. I mean, we should be honest about what his motivation seems to be in these things.
Yeah, unless we forget, I mean, there's a whole issue of the constitutionality of Jack Smith as a special prosecutor.
That's right. I mean, the case was dismissed in Florida on the ground that he was not constitutionally appointed, and so because he's not an officer, who has been confirmed by the Senate, and he was not appointed under any law that allows specifically someone for his position. The so-called independent counsel law expired 2 decades ago. There is no law that says you can have special counsels, even though a lot of presidents have done it. And so, yeah, I think there's a whole lot of questions here. I think he's just probably frustrated. His Florida case has gone away until some appeals court or the Supreme Court rules differently on whether he's properly appointed. And now D.C. is going nowhere fast. And I think he's frustrated. I think his whole thing was he's going to have Trump convicted before Election Day.
Now, you wrote an article about European social media censorship, and do you think it's going to happen here in America?
Well, it is happening here. If you read what Zuckerberg wrote, his mea culpa, a little late, like 2 to 3 years late, but mea culpa about how the Biden administration pressured him to suppress COVID information they didn't like, and information about Hunter's laptop. So it is happening here, but the spark of that op-ed was the arrest of the founder of Telegram by the French. And it's very murky as to why he was arrested. They're saying it's because he did not cooperate with them in terms of monitoring and moderating content on Telegram. Now, I don't really use Telegram. I think we do have an account at the website, but I don't really go there. But it has served as an outlet for people around the world who have been stifled in their home countries. Unfortunately, it's also served as an outlet for terrorist groups and others. But the whole concept that he's being arrested for failing to moderate content, as somebody who runs a website, that's a pretty scary proposition.
Yeah, it was also interesting that Durov apparently told police he was scheduled to have dinner with French Prime Minister Emmanuel Macron the night he was arrested. Well,
is that a setup?
So is Macron like a law enforcement asset now, or is there something else going on? And apparently, he was invited. I mean, this is not long-standing. He had lunch with Macron in 2018. He was invited to relocate his company to Paris. They even discussed the possibility of granting Pavel Durov French citizenship. Durov ultimately declined. He's a citizen of UAE now. But I mean, boy, it's one of those things too, where it's about a little bit of a cautionary tale, even if you're a tech titan, of getting in bed with government.
Well, it's very strange. I don't think we know all the details there. The French have not been forthcoming with them.
Shocking.
So we don't know. We only know We only know what they say, and what they've said, or at least suggested, is that it has something to do with him failing to control content on the platform. And we know in Britain that's enough to get you arrested now. You post a meme. I mean, there's all sorts of videos. I just saw one this morning. All sorts of videos of British police arresting people, coming to their homes because they didn't like something they posted on Facebook. Not Facebook, on the internet someplace. Could be Facebook. And these are not like death threats they posted and things like that. these are, mocking of politicians and mocking of the social situation in Britain. And, I think we're not there yet here, because here the government doesn't come and arrest you for the most part because of stupid stuff you put on the internet. But the social media platforms do the government's job. So it's very troubling what's happening in Europe, because it is going to reach here. Americans, millions of them who use Telegram, are now, at risk.
And what about prosecuting droogs who, I don't know, desecrate a campus building at Cornell? I saw that Day Hall was vandalized by pro-Hamas protesters on the first day of classes. Graffiti reading, "Israel bombs, Cornell pays, blood is on your hands." Glass door was smashed during the incident, spray painting, so on and so forth. We had an incident at a pregnancy care center for Aid for Women by these same people on their way out of town after the DNC in Chicago last week. Nobody ever seems to get yanked in for those. Police are Johnny on the spot when it comes to social media, and also making calls for, especially in Europe, since we were talking about that, for extraditing Elon Musk to face criminal charges and so forth. But when it comes to people actually committing acts of violence, actually committing crimes, so there's a little bit less alacrity in pursuing them.
Yeah, I think we've seen that around the country. At Cornell, Day Hall is the central administration building. It's where the president of the university has his office. He's the interim president because the other one quit a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So it was very symbolic that they chose Day Hall. There has been prior graffiti on campus last semester, but to target the front door at Day Hall, to smash it, and to spray paint it, I think is a signal of the frustration that these students are going through. For all their encampments and all their bullhorns and all their robotic chanting for an intifada, they really haven't accomplished much. They've gotten a few concessions here and there from universities, but no university, to my knowledge, has divested from Israel yet. No university has really cut off ties with Israel. And so I'm not sure what they think they're accomplishing, but I think their frustration is potentially very dangerous. And in fact, the student who did it, or students who did it, spoke anonymously to the Cornell Daily Sun, which is the student newspaper, and said they felt the need to get people's attention because nobody's paying attention to them. So what's the next step to get attention?
Mm-hmm.
We had a student last fall who is now serving a 4-year prison term for getting attention by threatening to shoot up the kosher dining hall and to slit Jewish throats on campus. Is that what they're going to do next? So I think it's a very dangerous situation.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to me. I don't know. I saw some survey information recently too that I very close to a majority of Jewish students on campus feel uncomfortable being identified as Jewish because they fear reprisal. So I mean that didn't stop when the kids broke for summer.
No, and I think that, what has happened on campuses is they use a code word, and the code word is Zionist. So they're looking to drive Zionists off campus. Well, the vast majority of Jews are Zionists, okay? So that's the code word that they use, and it's become an obsession. They're going to, at UCLA, they set up a checkpoint, which a judge excoriated and issued an injunction against it. But on Cornell, it's the same thing. They're trying to make it toxic and unacceptable socially to accept, to acknowledge that you're a Zionist. And I think they're having some success because the majority of Jewish students who do support the existence of Israel as a Jewish homeland are now afraid to even identify as being Jewish. So anti-Zionism is, in fact, the new anti-Semitism.
Professor William Jacobson is a clinical professor of law, director of the Securities Law Clinic at Cornell. He's also the founder of LegalInsurrection.com and president of the Legal Insurrection Foundation, as well as the Equal Protection Project. Professor Jacobson, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. Take care.
Thanks, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's morning.